It's no secret that the entire Switch era of Pokémon has faced its fair share of controversy. Across the deficit, dated graphics, unchanging gameplay, they often left a lot to be desired. We started this era in 2018 with Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, seemingly trying to capitalize on the success of Pokémon Go. It was an extremely casual-oriented game, what with it being meant to appeal to new players introduced through Pokémon Go, and it was just kinda a really bare-bones Gen 1 Pokémon game. It wasn't bad, but what it set out to be itself was inherently limiting. Then, in 2019, was Sword and Shield, Dexit, the controversies about it being for better graphics or animations, an nonsensical story, and gameplay that ultimately is more of the same old, and that it's not bad, but it's not standout. In 2020, we got Sword and Shield DLC. In 2021 was Bug Diamond and Shipped Pearly, a faithful remaster of the original Diamond and Pearl, and a chibi art style I would argue is less charming than the original pixel graphics, and lacking any real enhancements of Platinum. In 2022 was Pokémon Legends Arceus, the first Legends title where they essentially said, hey, this is our mainline spin-off series where we try different things. I still had my fair share of issues with this game. The lackluster graphics, Pokemon that felt like they weren't existing naturally in their environment, the absolutely absurd excessiveness in grinding for the Pokedex, boss battles that didn't even have you use Pokemon and instead you just throw pocket sand at the boss, the extreme glitchiness, but at least at its core, I would generally call this game fun. It wasn't a fully fleshed out game, but it felt like a really solid tech demo for a new potential route this series could take. Then in 2022 was Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, which did away with almost all of the positive changes made by Pokémon Legends Arceus, walking back to the style employed by Sword and Shield, where you just touch a Pokémon and it initiates a battle. And frankly, I feel like the best way to sum up the quality of this game is Pokémon Scarlet and Violet was the Sonic 06 of the Pokémon series. 2023 was Scarlet and Violet DLC, which, story-wise, was actually my favorite experience in Pokémon in a long time, though I felt still wasn't fully fleshed out, and suffered from a lot of issues of Scarlet and Violet proper. Then, in 2024, we finally chilled out for a hot second. Then, the end of 2025, we saw Pokémon Legends Z-A, which marks the end of the Switch era of Pokémon, as the next games, Winds and Waves, will be exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2. Pokémon Legends Z-A was released on both the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. After what a slam dunk Legends Arceus was in terms of fan reception, I thought for sure Legends Z-A was going to really hit it off as well, and boy did they ever take it in a completely different direction. One that resulted in an extremely mixed reception from what I could tell. And this is the way we close out this extremely odd and confusing Switch era of Pokemon. So, after making videos exploring the other games up until this point, let's finish off this saga and era by delving properly into Pokémon Legends Z-A. This game released October 16th, 2025, and I played it up until the end of May 2026. So on and off for about 7.5 months I played this game. That includes the Mega Dimension DLC, which had released in December of 2025. I played the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game, so keep in mind that any gameplay footage you're seeing is of the better graphics and a higher frame rate version. And audio listeners, just use your imagination, I guess. Chapter 1, leading up to release. There's not too much that I want to say about this game before release in this one compared to some of my previous Pokemon video essays, but there's still a couple things I feel are important to note. The first is the price. I actually made a video essay on Nintendo Switch 2 game prices, and how it's actually not too surprising when you factor in inflation, rising production costs, and outside economic factors like tariffs at the time that the Switch 2 released, very much feeling like the one content creator that wasn't blindly just like, price is higher, Nintendo's so greedy. Anyway, would highly recommend that video. That being said, standard full-price Switch 1 games here in Canada have been $80 since the Switch launched in 2017. So you'd think they'd just increase game prices for their new console to match industry trends, as their player base gradually transitions over to said new console. Well, not only did they do that, but they increased the price of Switch 1 games too. Pokémon Legends Z-A on the Switch 1 is $85, a $5 increase over the standard Switch 1 game. And not only that, and not only does Nintendo decide they're basically never putting their games on sale, but the price of their existing $80 Switch 1 games got bumped up to $85 here in Canada as of the launch of the Switch 2. So if you want to buy Pokemon Sword or Shield, something that would have previously cost you $80, well, now these Pokemon games from 2019 cost you $85. Breath of the Wild from 2017, that game costs $85 now, despite being 9 years old. It's almost in the double digits. It's almost 10 years old, and that's why we've increased the price. So, Pokémon Legends Z-A on the Switch 1 costs $85. On the Switch 2, it costs $100, a difference of $15. And if you're to buy the upgrade pack to download the Switch 2 enhancements for your Switch 1 copy of the game, it's $15. Because Nintendo doesn't have the concept of consumers purchasing a bundle should be able to do so for cheaper than the sum of its parts. The Switch 2 version gives enhanced graphics and performance. That costs you $15. I could probably buy a really nice game on a Steam sale for $15. Or, I could get better frame rate in this game I've already purchased. And mind you, while console sellers often make very little margin on the consoles they sell, since they make that back on the games they sell, I've still paid $630 Canadian to purchase a Switch 2. I've purchased this console that is far from cheap. I've purchased an $85 game. My console is capable of running this game at a higher frame rate, and it won't unless I give them an extra $15 frame rate and graphics fee on top of everything else I've already given them. Talk about anti-consumer. On top of that, this game got DLC, Mega Dimension, which is such a grindfest it makes Legends Arceus blush, as I'll talk about later in the video. This DLC was released December 10th, 2025. Remember when I said the main game released October 16th? Yeah, so the DLC expansion released less than 2 months after the base game. I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to make and release a DLC, it should be something extra made after the game launch, not something co-developed with the game itself, and therefore, for all intents and purposes, could have just been content cut from the game with an extra paywall put over it. A golden example of this is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. I will happily give them more money for more game they made way after the fact in a game that I enjoy. Let a game come out, see how it's received, and then plan out how you might want to make some additional content. But you release a game and DLC right alongside each other like this, telling consumers that this DLC was already basically a finished product from day one and it was just withheld a little while, and essentially withheld as main game content, and it just puts a sour taste in my mouth. I do also recognize that Nintendo with any of their IPs always seems to have a roadmap of plans to continue putting out content for a game or not since before the game ships, rather than taking a Shadow of the Erdtree approach where it truly does feel like a decision made in post. A new Xenoblade game comes out, and you can bet that's getting an expansion in waves starting a few months after launch and ending about a year after launch. They have their roadmap planned out in advance. And to play devil's advocate, it's not like a game is released the moment it's done. You want to ensure the game is finished and then release it at a time you feel will promote the game's success. And if the game is done and you're planning on making DLC, you can start making the DLC right now. Take Fire Emblem Engage for example. That Nintendo game was finished way before it released, due to them releasing it at a later date that they felt would help the game succeed better. So all the DLC they had for the game, they also began production on and finished before launch. So post-launch, all the DLC came out at a rapid-fire pace, since it was all pretty much done before the game launched anyway. This left a bit of a weird taste in my mouth, but I guess I can't be too upset about. DLC was likely worked on after the game was done still, it's just that the game itself still hadn't launched yet. The difference with Pokémon Legends Z-A is that I'd argue the game was not, and still to this day, is not in a state a publisher should proudly consider done. So DLC released less than 2 months after the base game, and not only that, but they revealed DLC and opened pre-orders for it before the base game had even launched. I've rambled before about what a scam pre-orders in modern gaming are. Like, if it's not a physical copy in a store, what do you think is gonna happen? Are they gonna run out? But this is a whole new level of pre-order egregious to me. They hadn't even released the game yet, and they were already asking consumers to pre-order their DLC, before anyone has had the chance to see if the base game is even any good. On top of that, here in Canada, standard Nintendo expansion passes costed $30 for the longest time. Pokémon Legends Z-A expansion cost $40. For $40, you can buy the Mega Dimension DLC, or you could buy Pal World, which you could also buy for a chunk cheaper than that when it's on sale. So if we total that up, that's an $85 game, $15 frame rate and graphics, $40 DLC, and if you want to count it as part of the essential Pokemon experience nowadays, we can also tack on $22 annually for a Pokemon Home subscription, and $30 annually for a basic individual Switch Online membership. That makes a total of $140 for the game content itself, plus $52 annually for all the game's online and compatibility features. So if you want the complete experience for 1 year, that's $192, which is absolutely ludicrous. For the sake of argument, let's assume we only want all in-game content with this game standalone. That means we don't need Pokemon Home to transfer Pokemon to or from this game. Nintendo Online, however, I cannot factor out of this cost calculation, as you are required to participate grinding in the online ranked mode to achieve the ranks required to get seasonal exclusive Mega Stones. The Gen 6 starters and Baxcalibur's Mega Stones are season rank reward exclusives, meaning you need at least 4 months of Nintendo Online to unlock them, and you're not entirely sure when different stones are going to be brought back as rewards as far as I know, but don't quote me on that. So, to be safe, let's say you're buying minimum 1 year of Nintendo Online. So to get all in-game content, your total cost of this game still comes out to $170 Canadian. These games are at an extreme premium price, and I won't pretend otherwise. For $170, you know how many games you can get on Steam for a good sale? A word Nintendo really doesn't like. Or let's look at PlayStation for example I can draw on since I got a PS5 a couple of years ago. Their physical games that have been out for a year plus-ish typically end up getting marked down, and you can find them on sale a decent bit of the time too. Let's look at my 2 big PlayStation orders off of Video Games Plus for example. I bought Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Crisis Core, and Last of Us 1 for a total cost of $110.22. My other order was Ghost of Tsushima PS5 version, Demon's Souls also PS5, and God of War PS4 for $89.97. Neither one of those 3 game orders of mine cost as much as Legends Z-A with DLC alone. That's skipping out on the Nintendo Switch 2 edition and Nintendo Online. Most of these games I bought for $40, the price of Mega Dimension DLC alone. So if we look at that $170 price tag on Pokémon Legends Z-A for the complete in-game experience, that is still more expensive than buying 4 $40 PS5 games. I've bought Last of Us Part 1, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and Demon's Souls combined for less than the complete experience of Pokémon Legends Z-A cost me. All of those are new versions of already existing games to be fair, but my point still stands. I browse for PS5 games that have been out for at least a year or two, and I tend to see them going for roughly $40. Can you tell I wrote this script before PlayStation announced that they're axing their physical games? The other thing before launch to note are that Nintendo's still suing Pocketpair on the ground of patent infringement, which really doesn't make me the most enthused about supporting this company in any way when they sue their competition. And before I get another bazillion comments that are like, oh, you bought a copy of the game, you're the problem. Bro, I'm doing a review. I'm doing this as my part-time job. And frankly, I really don't think that the sale of 1 unit of the game outweighs the influence of my videos. So then, let's move into the actual game itself. Pokémon Legends Z-A. Chapter 2, Story. Let's start out by discussing the story this time, so you have the framework to understand what it is we're actually playing when we discuss the gameplay. We arrive in Lumio City by train, meet Tawny, or Urbane if you played the female playable character, who's with the crackhead starter options of this game of Chikorita, Totodile, and Tepig, so 2 of the Gen 2 starters plus Tepig. We immediately get mugged. We go reclaim our stolen stuff by using our chosen of the 3 starter Pokemon. Uh-oh, it's nighttime, and we're in a battle zone, which means the typical style of mugging in Pokemon where you battle someone who doesn't want to fight back is now legal. I guess it's illegal normally, because it's suddenly the Purge. AZ and Eternal Floette make a return from Pokemon X and Y in this game, and here Floette comes and scares off the ne'er-do-wells by firing the Death Star laser into the sky. Tawny convinces you to come to Hotel Z, and coaxes you into joining Team MZ you'll be working under for the entire rest of the game. Who are you, and why did you come to Lumio City? These questions are never answered! Presumably you came to Lumio City for some sort of reason, and then you immediately drop it so you can voluntarily become an indentured servant for this chick you just met. You learn that there is a city-wide event called the Z-A Royale, where trainers battle against one another to rise in the city-wide rankings, where every trainer starts at rank Z and moves up towards rank A. The trainer who reaches rank A will have a wish granted by Quasartico Inc., the company putting together the Z-A Royale and establishing the battle zones and wild zones. There seems to be some sort of unknown bad thing coming up according to AZ, and yeah, these names aren't confusing at all. AZ, Z-A Royale, Team MZ, and AZ wants you and or Tawny to prove yourselves as the city's strongest Mega Evolution users, aka the ones who reach rank A in the Z-A Royale, so you can wield Eternal Floette and save this city. The closest equivalent to Rising Action we get is that there's this phenomenon called Rogue Mega Evolution, where a wild Pokemon Mega evolves against its will and goes berserk, putting the city in danger. Supposedly, we never really see it in any danger. The frequency of this occurring is going up, and we need the city's strongest Mega Evolution user who reaches rank A of the Z-A Royale to be able to step up and save the day. It's not really Rising Action though that leads us up to the climax, it's just that this is happening, and will keep happening until we reach the climax where you stop it. Before we properly delve into our non-existent Rising Action, a couple more things to establish. Tawny has a goal in this city. It's to track down her mother, who she wears the jacket of, whose last known location was in Lumio City. The other members of Team MZ are Lita, who's an aspiring dancer, and Naveen, who has talent with a sewing needle, and definitely has a tier 3 subscription for the city's resident streamer. And in case anyone says I'm mispronouncing names, there's no voice acting, how am I supposed to know how to correctly pronounce the names? In case you're unfamiliar with Pokemon X and Y, 3,000 years ago, AZ was this dude who was heartbroken by losing his Pokemon Floette in this great war, so he constructed the ultimate weapon and dropped these fantasy nukes to end the war and to provide the energy to revive Floette, who then left him after learning about what he did, but rejoined him at the end of Pokemon X and Y. Lysander was our big bad leader of Team Flare who thought the world was so imperfect, probably because he learned about PlayStation discontinuing physical discs, and so he wanted to use the ultimate weapon to destroy the world. We stopped him in that game. Members of Team Flare have since disbanded, become indentured servants themselves like with our ex-Team Flare professor of this game, or picked up other businesses like running the coffee trucks around town with a crossed out Team Flare logo, the equivalent of post-World War II Nazis opening up a food truck and making their logo a crossed out swastika. Meanwhile, Lysander apparently got the eternal life affliction from the ultimate weapon that AZ got, lost his memories, and now roams around the city as the mysterious L. L has taken it upon himself to gather up all the Zygarde cells around the city, so that when the climax comes, the hero can use Zygarde's 100% form to save the city. Emma is another character that returns from Pokemon X and Y, who's now the head of the Looker Bureau. She works as a detective. A cool familiar face from that game, but honestly, you can remove her from the plot and nothing changes, so don't expect to see me talk about her a lot here. Meanwhile, Quasartico Inc. wants to create a city that blends together people and Pokemon. To do this, they designate areas of the city as wild zones. This section of the city now belongs to the Pokemon, marked by these hologram fences. As the game goes on, more and more of the city is turned into wild zones, showing that Quasartico is actively expanding the number of wild zones as you continue to play. This is so unbelievably dumb in so many ways. For one, these areas are not at all built to be a habitat for Pokemon. There's no terraforming to turn into a more natural environment for them. No, it's just a random chunk of the city that's just for the Pokemon now. The wild zones are almost all streets with a little bit of grass and a couple trees on the side. What a great environment for the Pokemon. And think about the people too. If you have an apartment in a building the city just decides are for wild zones now, do you just lose your housing and are forced to relocate? Do you just lose your home? Have fun with the anti-homeless benches littered all across the city. you'll frequently see vehicles seemingly abandoned on the sides of some wild zones. If you didn't get the memo you needed to move your vehicle before X date, and the wild zone is just erected around your vehicle, do you just give up your vehicle? It's not even impounded, it's just a permanent part of the wild zone or something? And I'm not the only one who thinks this is dumb. It's an actual plot point in the game. At one point, I believe you help this old geezer who dropped his ring in the graveyard since he had wanted to visit his deceased partner, but was chased out by wild ghost-type Pokemon because the city decided that graveyard is a wild zone now. You have crowds, well, crowds by number of NPCs by Pokemon standards at least, out protesting Quasartico and their manner of incorporating wild zones into the city. You have factions vying to win people over to their own solutions to the wild zone problem, like the Fist of Justice, who wants to teach everybody how to kick ass in martial arts, so that if you're ever attacked by a wild Pokemon in some random part of the city, your grandma is ready to fist fight God. The way these wild zones are handled is terribly, and that's not just a, this doesn't make sense if you really think about it kind of situation. No, the game itself makes a point that these are bad with these different circumstances it presents to you. This implies that it will come to a head in some way. Maybe our wish at the end of the game will be something that improves the city. Maybe we'll see this grossly negligent Quasartico change their ways and let people and Pokemon actually coexist in a more healthy way, right? This never happens. We can see through the game's events how these wild zones as they are a bad idea, and the game never changes it, or even implies the heroes want to do anything to change it. It's like it's a plot point that got abandoned, or they didn't want to rethink how they change wild zones while maintaining the current gameplay. It seems like it'd be one of the more core parts of the plot at first, but ultimately, it's left untouched. The game makes sure to point you to one of the biggest Chekhov's guns in it, and then proceeds to never fire it. How the Z-A Royale works, meanwhile, is every night there is a dedicated battle zone or two marked off by these red holographic fences, which I should make clear are like physical walls, and will have a couple designated entrance and exit points. Inside the battle zone, trainers can feel free to openly battle one another, consent or not, to try to gain Z-A Royale points. Like the wild zones, this is another bad idea that the game shows us is a bad idea. There's instances where we'll see somebody who stayed too long after work, and now they're trapped in the middle of the purge and they don't know how to get out. Another problem that's never fixed. Once you have enough points, you can participate in a promotion match, where you battle a designated trainer who's the same rank as you, and whoever wins advances to the next rank as you slowly work your way towards A. After you do a few, a head honcho of Quasartico is like, hey, you have a lot of promise. To make this game less grindy, how about you battle me, and if you win, you jump up a whole bunch of ranks at once. So you battle him, and then immediately jump up to like rank F or something, so there's only a good handful of promotion matches left. At this point, you spend most of the game grinding up Z-A Royale points, unlocking the next promotion match, and then spending the bulk of the content of this game's plot running around on subplots all about where the hell is the person I'm supposed to battle. You're always ready to battle whenever, but your opponent who's obligated to battle you often never particularly cares, and you need to go on what feels like a mandatory side quest to actually find them and get them to battle you. Because despite getting as far as they did in the Z-A Royale, they don't seem to particularly care about it. So after you jump over well over half the ranks, you have to challenge Canary to a promotion match, who's the city's popular streamer. This involves you having to go to one of her fan events, answer Canary trivia with Naveen sending you the correct answers, battling some of her fans, going to meet in person where you find out these events are really just her grandpa pretending to be her as he's a talented VTuber, you battle him, and you finally get to meet and challenge her. You beat her, she presumably starts swearing like crazy as the game just fills her text box with censored words, and that part admittedly cracked me up, and you promote. Then you have a promotion match against the guy who wants everyone's grandma to be adept enough to fistfight God, but he can't battle right now because his sister is missing. So you join together with Detective Emma and go on an investigation through the city sewers to eventually find her, and find out she just needed a place to get away for a while because she gets so fed up with her brother. This pro fighter falls in battle to the random beetle I had in my pocket, and you promote. Then, you find out that Tawny wanted promotional marketing for Hotel Z, but didn't have the funds for it. so she took out a loan from the mob at a ridiculous interest rate, and now she's in inescapable debt to the mob, who now forcefully employs you two as indentured servants around the city to do their bidding. You do all these jobs for them, and find out that all the work they're doing and having you do is for the betterment of the city. They see you want to improve the city as well, they waive your remaining debt, and it turns out your next promotion match is against the mob boss himself. So you defeat him and promote. Then you get invited to a tournament for some of the best battlers in the city, hosted by hecc. You can't stick around though, emergency rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon to deal with, so you dip out. hecc isn't impressed with you leaving her tournament, and so she turns into your craziest stalker and hounds you at every twist and turn. And eventually you return, battle her as your next promotion match, and evidently promote. You also battle Zygarde at this point, and Elle shows up like, hey, looks like Zygarde likes you, dude. Then you have a promotion match against Grisham, who's a complete mystery person, so you need to do sleuthing work to figure out who this guy even is. Don't know how he can be such a mystery person if other people would have presumably battled him a lot for him to get all the way up to rank B, but that's neither here nor there. You find out he's an ex-member of Team Flare, and track him down to the Team Flare food trucks. His partner gets all pissed, being like, hey, you shouldn't hold us accountable to Team Flare's bad deeds. We were just roped in as children at the time. That's in the past and we've moved past it. Completely ignoring the fact that the logo of this terrorist organization they've presumably left in the past is plastered all over their food trucks, but anyways. We're sent into the old Team Flare basement to get the lore. We find out that the writers decide to smoke some Pokepuffs and decide that now in Gen 6 lore, there was actually 2 ultimate weapons AZ built. And the second one is the tower in the middle of Illumio City. And it's getting pretty crazy with Mega Evolution juice that's causing more and more Pokemon to Rogue Mega Evolve until it goes berserk itself. And that's why we need someone who's rank A and the strongest Mega Evolution user so they can forcefully stop the Eiffel Tower from destroying France. We battle Grisham, defeat him, and promote to rank A. And Tawny promotes to rank A around the same time as well. This brings us into the final act where we move to stop the tower. But first, let's pause for a moment. All of what I described to you was the main meat of this game, the rising action, or equivalent of it. This is not a plot that moves towards a climax. It's a fever dream of the most unhinged mandatory side quests that have nothing to do with the overall plot, happening over and over and over until the game tells you, alright, it's climax time now. The game that it reminds me the most of in that sense is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's this world full of what are essentially mandatory side quest subplots over and over until finally, hey, it's time for the final act. And keep in mind that in between every one of these unhinged subplots, you need to grind up however many thousands of points in battle zones to qualify for your promotion match, and you need to go defeat 3 rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon around the city. This game is, by design, a grind, which makes it even harder to get invested in what little plot there is. So, the final act begins. The tower is going berserk. Someone needs to be the hero who goes up there with Eternal Floette to do something I don't remember to stop it. Tawny is like, hey, I know you keep on being better than me all the time, but I really want to be the hero who goes and does that thing. So I want to battle you for the right to do that. Taking the time to have that battle so she can be the special snowflake while the city is actively falling apart, mind you. You most likely win, and Tawny's like, I know you won, but I really want to still be the one anyway, and traps you into a Pokemon Infinite dialogue loop until you agree. So she takes Mega Eternal Floette and goes to the top of the tower to try to stop it. Meanwhile, you band together with all the main people you defeat in the Z-A Royale leading up to this point to get escorted to the base of the tower. You fight the tower, and Zygarde shows up for you to Mega Evolve it and blast the tower with a Death Star laser to stop the tower and save the city. Then AZ fucking dies. The end. Even his grave is imposing. That's fitting for AZ in a way. AZ died? When did this happen? In the postgame, you and Tawny get your wish from Quasartico since you became rank A. This is something I felt like wasn't really clear in the game, but apparently the Z-A Royale only existed to find the person who's the strongest Mega Evolution user who could save the city, and then it would be dissolved. So for your wish, you're trapped into another Pokemon Infinite dialogue loop until you choose the option to keep the Z-A Royale going, because battles are so much fun and it brings people together. So Quasartico grants your wish, and the purge continues in random sections of the city every night. I get it's so that you can continue playing the game, but I don't think I need to explain to you at this point why, plot-wise, this is such an incredibly bad idea. Now, it's called the Infinite Z-A Royale. Now, there's no more progressing up the ranks. You're always at infinite rank, and every time you promote, it just increases the tally of number of times you've promoted. Tawny initially inherits Floette, and she's asked to take over at Quasartico and help out this city, at which point she makes 0 policy changes and things are left unchanged in the terrible way they are with the wild zones and battle zones. After you promote in the Infinite Z-A Royale 15 times, Tawny decides she's too busy to look after Floette and gives her to you. It also turns out the CEO of Quasartico is her grandmother, the mother of her mom she came to Lumio City looking for, and they have a nice heart-to-heart as they rekindle as family, and continue to terrorize their city with policies so negligent it'd make a certain Western president blush. Elle battles you, and then brings you to battle Zygarde, who you catch. Elle reveals he's immortal, or at least going to live an extremely long time like AZ did, and sets out to explore the world, presumably to show up in some other Pokemon games in the future. That's it. That's Pokémon Legends Z-A. In Pokemon plots, you have to suspend a major level of disbelief and acknowledge that they'll be nonsensical up until a point. But this... my goodness. I haven't played this wild and unhinged of a plot since I played Detective Pikachu Returns. I do admit that at times, at least it wasn't boring, thanks to the absolute unhinged lunacy that was so much of the plot. Like needing to defeat all the Wild Canary superfans to be able to actually battle her, and her grandpa turning out to be the VTuber pretending to be her, or becoming an indentured servant to the city mob. It's a barrage of what the hell is going on, in a way that can be entertaining at times thanks to the sheer absurdity of it all. Like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, for example, had an absolutely absurd plot, but it took itself very seriously and told its plot like it was something very serious. Pokémon Legends Z-A, however, does not take its plot seriously at all. It's self-aware, it's like a parody of itself, and in that way, I find it to be a lot more entertaining. But it's not a substitute for actually having a cohesive narrative. It feels like they designed the game around this grindy gameplay loop of farming points and then challenging promotion matches over and over, as well as facing rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon, and then strictly molded their plot around that gameplay loop. And then this is what the result is. If you ask me just bare basics, what is this plot about? I don't know that I could tell you. And we still have more story to discuss, because we have Mega Dimension DLC. And this DLC, we get this huge interdimensional portal above the tower, and all these smaller dimensional holes popping up and vanishing with each day and night cycle all across the city. We meet Ansha, this child who must have Assassin's Creeded her way up onto our rooftop. She's the Gen 6 champion, Diantha's daughter, and tells us about this amazing Pokemon called Rayquaza that she saw that she wants to give to her mom to impress her. She already has the mythical Pokemon Hoopa by her side that I don't remember the game ever establishing reasons for, and Hoopa has the power to delve into these hyperspace holes by eating hyperspace donuts Ansha prepares. We team up with a pro Mega Evolution user, Karina, fresh from her cage match she lost with her wardrobe, in order to take on these tougher rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon behind these hyperspace holes. So we create donuts, enter these hyperspace holes, farm survey points, farm donut ingredients, get enough points to face the next Mega Evolved boss, and repeat, over and over, for the next 10 to 20 hours. You thought the main game was a repetitive grind fest, and the DLC really said, hold my beer. Eventually, you get to the point where the game decides it's finally time to delve into that big final boss hole above the tower. It turns out, Darkrai is the one responsible for this hyperspace craziness, who had absorbed too much Mega Juice from the tower going berserk that it amplified Darkrai's nightmares into these pockets of hyperspace. So, if the Pokemon in these holes are all part of a dream or something, I don't know what that means if I catch them and bring them back to the real world, but let's not worry about that. We defeat and catch Mega Darkrai, and the day is saved, but Ansha's disappointed that she couldn't meet Rayquaza before these hyperspace holes went away. Our mob head honcho we've been working with on this, Corbo, explains, hey, this stuff was so intense that catching Darkrai doesn't mean all the holes will go away immediately. It'll take some time to dissipate. which is essentially the excuse to say that in gameplay, you'll always have access to hyperspace holes, so you don't just lose a gameplay mechanic. And so, Ansha hopes you'll go get Rayquaza. You have to farm enough points in these holes that took me hours to obtain to be able to go battle and catch Groudon and Kyogre. Then you have to go and farm so many points that it took me even more hours to obtain, to the point that it had me on the verge of quitting at several points, to be able to go and face Rayquaza, who you catch. Ansha's like, that's cool, but learns the value of her mother just appreciating her and not needing a legendary Pokemon as the excuse for you to keep Rayquaza. The end. That's the plot of the Mega Dimension DLC. So, I don't know, man. That was pretty dumb. I'll give credit where it's due. I think factoring in an older mythical Pokemon to be a key part of this plot is cool in and of itself, but it was never really properly explored, was it? The entire DLC plot was just a repetitive grind fest until you eventually reach the climax when the game decides it's time to. You have enough points for it, with no real emotional build-up before that point. Both the main game and DLC are a rough sequence of events, sure, but I'd be hard-pressed to call either of them a real plot. A plot, to me, implies a logical sequence of events with a rising action, something this game lacks. Chapter 3, Gameplay. Pokémon Legends Z-A introduces a new battle style based on real-time combat. You press the face buttons, which each correspond to one of your 4 moves. I do love me some real-time combat games, like the Xenoblade titles for example, where you have to strategize your team compositions and when to use different arts. In Pokémon Legends Z-A, however, almost all the time the battle strategy of this game comes down to just spamming your best moves when they come off of cooldown. Like, sure, sometimes there's a little bit more depth, like putting on a status condition or using something like Swords Dance to raise your own stats, but that's pretty much it. I mean, maybe I'm just not a good enough Pokemon player, I don't know. It's a real-time action game where the combat is about as basic as it gets. I get that Pokemon is built in such a way to be simple for anyone to get into so it can be appealing to a wide audience, but I would still prefer it if it had more depth underneath the hood for those looking to play at a higher level. I love games that are easy to learn but difficult to master, but this game is not that. If you want to play a good real-time Nintendo game that actually has depth, play any of the Xenoblade games. They just got Switch 2 versions 2 here recently. If you want to play the real-time Pokemon game, almost all the time you'll just be spamming your best moves when they come off of cooldown. In order to input a move though, you need to be actively holding ZL to target the opposing Pokemon. It's not a toggle, like in a lot of games where you click in the right stick to toggle your lock-on and off. No, you need to actively hold it. So while battling in this game, you essentially need to hold ZL non-stop during trainer battles, and probably about 80% to 90% of the time in wild Pokemon battles. The reason you don't hold it all the time in wild battles is because the Y button when not locked on is your roll button, how you as the trainer dodge attacks so you don't lose the battle from trainer knockout. But if you're locked onto an opposing Pokemon, then the Y button is assigned to one of your Pokemon's moves. So you can dodge, or you can be locked on. You can't have both at once. You could have had one of the triggers be your dodge button, though I get having it be a face button for the convenience makes sense, especially as you potentially use the roll for building traversal during travel across the overworld. Or you could just be like other games where the lock-on is a toggle, not something you need to hold. Especially in trainer battles where you have no need to dodge because you can't be hit in a trainer battle anyway. And you just need to be holding a trigger near constantly for your face buttons to do what you need them to do. Just have it be a toggle! Because it's real time and the developers didn't want you to just be able to spam healing items until all your Pokemon are healed, item usage has a cooldown. I didn't know what this cooldown was for the longest time, feeling like I opened the menu and sometimes I can use items and sometimes I can't, and I had no way to know when I'd be able to use an item again. I believe it was a YouTube comment that informed me that there's actually a small bar at the bottom of the screen when I use an item that slowly fills up, and when it's full, it means I can use an item again. Yeah, I never noticed that through normal play. I'm kind of surprised I didn't, honestly. The part that really gets me, though, is that mid-battle, the menu is the most unresponsive button I've ever seen in any video game in my life. Okay, well, that sucks. Can I open my menu, please? I've been mashing X for 3 business days. Okay. Please, open the menu, open the menu, open the menu, open the menu, open... Open the menu, damn it! Wow, that was close. Can I open my menu, please? Can I open my menu, please? Can I please open my menu? Any day now. I've been mashing. Oh my god. Oh, poison powder. It doesn't seem to affect. Yeah. Open the menu, please. Please open the menu. Please. How freaking long does it take, man? Bruh. Oh my god. Open the menu, please. Open the menu! Come on! He's slowly dying there. I'm trying so hard to heal him, and the menu just doesn't open because that's this game in a nutshell. Unlike boss battles against big Pokemon in Pokemon Legends Arceus and Legends Z-A, we actually battle using our Pokemon instead of chucking pocket sand. The problem is your Pokemon try to stick close to you, which is not at all optimal. Have you ever played the first Pikmin game for the GameCube, where unless your Pikmin are given other directional orders, they'll gladly just walk off a cliff in their attempts to follow you? Yeah, imagine that, but your Pokemon barreling face first into the enemy attacks you're dodging, and there's no means to give them different directional orders. If the rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon is sending a huge Hyper Beam flying at my face, I can dodge that with a roll off to the side, and then my tactical alligator will proceed to do the most untactical option by following me and marching straight into Gleam's light beam that petrified the Super Smash Bros. In its attempt to reach me. So, when you issue a move to one of your Pokemon against the Pokemon you're targeting, your Pokemon will move within a close enough range of the target for that move to make contact, throw out their move, and when they don't have any moves buffered, their pathfinding tells them to make their way towards you. So, often, you'll be a bit farther away so that you don't get knocked out by the wild Pokemon. And your Pokemon will be performing this dance where they're walking back and forth between you and the target as they move to the target whenever a move is buffered, and move towards you when not. Combine that with the fact that if you command your Pokemon to perform a move, it locks you into a roughly 1 second long animation of putting out your arm to give the Pokemon the command where you're completely frozen in place. And you can't be issuing commands to your Pokemon while dodging attacks yourself, so you can't multitask in this game. If you're dodging attacks, your Pokemon isn't performing moves, which means it's booking it right to your position through all the attacks you're actively dodging. Because of this, I found the best play to make if the wild Pokemon was performing some sort of huge attack was to just recall my Pokemon. That way they don't faint by eating hit after hit that I'm dodging. This recall animation also freezes you completely in place, and takes about 2 to 3 seconds. So if I take too long and I input the recall button just before or shortly after the enemy has started their big attack, I die and I have to restart the battle from the beginning. So if I recognize that I'd be hitting the recall button too late thanks to too many other inputs I buffered, I would just have to accept that I can't recall my Pokemon. I need to dodge, my Pokemon needs to die as a ritual sacrifice. All of these things combine to make a real-time combat system that is so basic and incredibly clunky that it feels like more of a slog to deal with than a meaningful gameplay experience in my opinion. The other things to note about the combat include Mega Evolving your Pokemon. Instead of 1 Mega Evolution per battle like the previous games, in this game it's on a timer, which I feel makes more sense in this type of game anyway. As you perform moves, your Mega Juice meter, whatever it's called, goes up, and when it's full, you can Mega Evolve, where it gradually now goes down. If your Pokemon uses a move while in closer proximity to you, you gain more meter. Against Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon, they'll also drop these orbs as you hit them, which you can pick up to gain more meter, requiring you to get closer to them and therefore take greater risk to your trainer potentially being knocked out for the sake of greater reward, so a nice little risk and reward factor put in there too. Because of this system, you can Mega Evolve multiple Pokemon in the same battle if it's long enough. My biggest complaint with this system is that often I need to burn my entire meter just to be able to change what Pokemon I have Mega Evolved. Let's say I'm in a battle zone, and I Mega Evolve my Tactical Gator into its Skibidi Gator form to win this fight or fulfill side conditions. As long as I have a Mega Evolved Pokemon on the field, the meter gradually depletes. But the battle is over, and I recall my Gator, potentially sending out another Pokemon to explore this area with me. That way I can conserve my meter. Now that my Mega Evolved Pokemon is recalled, that meter depletion is paused. I can battle with other Pokemon to make that meter go up again, but the fact remains that the meter is now locked into being exclusively tied to my Floridator until it depletes or Floridator faints. So often I'd leave a battle zone, have a near full meter, but because one of my Pokemon was already Mega Evolved, I knew I didn't have the option to Mega Evolve anybody else in the next battle. So I'd often just throw out my Mega Evolved Pokemon, sit around waiting, twiddling my thumbs, the bar fully depletes, my Pokemon reverts to its regular form. Now I can Mega Evolve anybody on my team again. But I need to build up this depleted bar all the way before I can do that again. I really wish there was an option outside of battle to select a Mega Evolved Pokemon and revert them. That way you don't have to lose your entire bar just so that you can Mega Evolve someone else. You can revert and save what's in your bar as extra credit for next time. One nice thing though is you can also hit the plus button on your controller to perform your next move as a plus move. This is a powered up version of that move, which will hit the opponent much harder. When you're Mega Evolved, every move you perform is a plus move by default. Against Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon, you need to be Mega Evolved yourself, or perform plus moves to do more serious damage to them. Performing a plus move while not Mega Evolved costs 1/4 of your bar. This means your party members who can't Mega Evolve can still do some serious damage too. It doesn't require the player to use exclusively Mega Evolvable Pokemon, which is nice. With that, I think that's about everything I had to say in regards to the battles themselves. It has some interesting ideas in regards to how it handles Mega Evolution, plus moves, and the fact that you're actually on the field alongside your Pokemon, and that you need to dodge attacks too, but overall it still feels way too bare bones, spammy, and clunky for me to want to invest serious time into it like I would other real-time based RPGs. The battle zones have you battle opponents to amass points until you have enough to qualify for your next promotion match. Every time you defeat an opponent, you'll gain points. You'll also find reward tickets scattered around zones. You can have up to 3 at a time, and there are essentially additional objectives you can fulfill for extra points, with the harder ones awarding more points. These tickets are basically like the tickets in Ticket to Ride. I would find it a bit frustrating at times when I do battle after battle and still not find any tickets, because if you're not doing tickets during your battles, then the point grind becomes extra slow. If the other trainer sees you first, they'll forcefully pull you into a battle, but you can actually jump them in this game by attacking their Pokemon before they've noticed you, which often had me one-shotting their Pokemon before they've spawned me, so you're literally jumping people in dark alleys in this game. Every trainer has extremely simple patrol routes like you're playing a retro Metal Gear game. They'll often wander to one end, look around, turn around, walk to the end, and repeat. So a lot of this constant mandatory grind throughout the game came down to me crouching behind planters or walls, just waiting for the opposing trainer to turn around so I could jump them. And I guess you're the only person that actually explores the battle zones if everyone else is just either standing still or having their basic patrol routes, which makes the world feel extra robotic-y. Some battle zones are huge, and other ones tiny. Sometimes I go sit on a bench to switch it to day, and then back to night, just to get a better, bigger battle zone. Some battle zones would have trainers up on the rooftops, with me not having any clue how I even get up there, so I just reset the battle zone anyway. These battle zones aren't outright terrible or anything, but keep in mind, half the game is literally just this. Get cards with objectives to fill, try to sneak up on people, battle them by spamming your best moves for the situation the moment they come off of cooldown. Later on, with good type coverage, you start going around just one-shotting everyone's Pokemon pretty much. Grind up enough points until you can do your promotion match. Yeah, hope you like doing that for 20-some hours. You'll get a payout at the end of each night cycle corresponding to how many trainers you defeated, which does beg the question of what this is. Taxpayer dollars? Is it privately funded by Quasartico? This is incredibly annoying if you're trying to advance the days for some reason or another, like getting the weather you need for the Marshadow quest, or re-rolling your hyperspace holes. So every time the game turns to night, it'll do its jingle and show an aerial shot of a battle zone while it says Battle Zone Activated. And every time the game turns to day, it'll show you a calculation of all the trainers you defeated that night. Even if you defeated nobody and therefore get 0 reward. There's no way to skip this. Overworld exploration. Yeah, this sucks. In Pokemon X and Y 12 years before Z-A, we had roller skates, the bicycle, or even Go-Goat. Even in the last Legends game, Legends Arceus, we had all manner of ride Pokemon. In Pokemon Legends Z-A, we have our legs, and that's it. You better run from every point A to B in this game, even though leaks have shown us that they did have Go-Goat rideable in earlier versions of the game. It was cut for some reason. There is at least fast travel to places you've visited before across the city, but yeah, you're pretty much just booking it around outside of that. You can get up to rooftops to explore in this game, which you often have to do for quest objectives, hyperspace holes, or to fight trainers in battle zones. I would spend quite a while just doing a few perimeter runs around a building trying to find where the one way up is. Oh, there's no way up? Now let's check the adjacent connected buildings I could walk over from or jump over to my actual target building and start doing a perimeter around each one of those one by one, hoping I'll stumble upon the one way up. Eventually, I learned that in the case where there's teleporters, these teleporters that bring up to the roof have an actual symbol on the map, so I could scan for where I saw one of those. And if I didn't see one but saw a side quest objective next to a building, it was usually a side quest to restore the teleporter. So there were times I'd have something like a hyperspace hole I need to reach, but I genuinely can't until I do this random side quest I had no plans of doing before, just so I can activate the teleporter. At least those side quests are usually pretty short and simple. I wouldn't mind this as much if there was actually substantial side rewards up on these particular rooftops, like doing a side quest in game to unlock a new area to explore. But when every rooftop looks and feels the same, yeah, I'm only doing this if I know there's something I specifically need up on that rooftop, which did happen a fair few times. Unlike Legends Arceus, there's no fall damage in this game. You can feel free to drop from any height and your Rotom phone will catch you. There's also Rotom Glide. Hit A while in midair to essentially get a double jump with your Rotom phone. That, combined with your dash, were essentially the main air traversal tools, so you could dash off a rooftop for forward distance, and then Rotom Glide for a double jump to try and reach the next rooftop. There's no actual jump button in this game though, so you can't jump off a rooftop and then Rotom Glide to try to get somewhere. You need to physically walk off the edge of the rooftop before you can deploy the Rotom Glide. Doing a dash off and deploying Rotom Glide would feel a bit better, but dashing loses you more upward height before you can glide than just walking off the roof where you can deploy almost immediately. So if there's an adjacent rooftop and you try to dash and glide, you often wouldn't have enough height to reach the other rooftop, and you'd have to climb all the way back up again. This meant that often the most optimal play was just walk off the rooftop and hit this double jump button, which just feels kind of clunky and weird. Across the rooftops and puzzle scaffolding they put together around the city in this game, the game tries to be a bit of a puzzle platformer on the side, but its options and movement is way too clunky and rigid to be a puzzle platformer. It feels like the kind of rigidity and stiffness you'd see in a basic puzzle platformer put together during a game jam. Also, in regards to falling off rooftops, Pokémon can fall off rooftops too, often mid-battle. They don't take any damage from this, and just immediately teleport back up to the roof. There should have totally been fall damage from this, even if just for the reason that it would be so funny. Your level 5 Tepig misses rollout and proceeds to fall off a 3-story building? That's GG. Though if we were to consider a less memey alternative, if we did play more into rooftop battles, since there's a lot of them in this game, it would be interesting if it were used as an actual mechanic to add strategy. What if you had more direct control over the positioning of your Pokemon? Take the game Astral Chain, for example, which is actually another first-party game, mind you. Nintendo published this. It's an action game where you control both your character, the equivalent of the trainer, and your Legion, the equivalent of a Pokemon. You move your character with the left stick, and the Legion with the right stick, which offers positional strategies and combos. What if you could do something like that with your Pokémon in Z-A, and the perk of some moves is that it knocks the opponent back? If you knock the opposing Pokemon off the roof, then maybe it immediately knocks them out, or at least does a larger set percentage chunk of damage. That could add more strategic depth and engagement into gameplay, another way you can try to win, by ringing out your opponent. Maybe then, while you're sneaking up on an unsuspecting trainer, you can guide your Pokemon to a certain position to push their Pokemon off the 3-story building before they even notice. Plus, then you've actually got more incentive to use flying types for rooftop battles or something. I don't know, just spitballing ideas. But you implement more involved mechanics like this, and the game would no doubt become much more engaging and fun for me. The game doesn't really have that much in the way of strategic play that you can execute like that. The Rogue Mega Evolution battles I've described a bit when I talked about the Pokemon combat. Each Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon has different moves, but a lot of them are extremely similar, and every battle just starts feeling really samey, and it can get a bit annoying having 3 lined up between every story chapter. If you took away the Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon model and replaced it with some question mark and asked, "Who's that Pokemon?" and I had to guess based on their moves, I can confidently tell you that I would not know most of them. These battles feel extremely samey. They don't really have their own individual memorable traits or charm, because they're not designed for that. Once in a blue moon there'll be a more unique move, but very few it felt like. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, I don't know. Like doing the battle zones over and over, it's designed to be grindy content for the sake of content, not a meaningful, memorable experience. The main story objectives aren't that particularly fun. They almost always boil down to go to X quest location, do a battle or watch a short scene, then rinse and repeat. Like I said in the story section, there was some entertainment to be had at times from the unhinged lunacy that was this plot, but gameplay-wise, I genuinely don't know what I can tell you. What is there to say? The entire game is just grind out enough points to unlock a promotion match in the battle zones, do the story objectives of go to locations and do a battle or watch a short scene, do a promotion match, battle 3 Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon. Now do that all like 5 more times until like 30 hours have passed and it's time to start the climax. The core gameplay loop is itself designed as a repetitive grind. Pokémon Legends Arceus had a lot of grindiness under the hood with its Pokédex, but that grindy element was optional as far as I recall. The grind in Pokémon Legends Z-A, yeah, that's the entire game. That's the core gameplay loop. This single-player RPG is designed like it's some MMO or something. I don't know, I've never played an MMO, but it's clearly designed like it's something it's not. For other gameplay elements, the pathfinding isn't particularly great. Being able to explore with your Pokemon at your side is a great feature that should have been a more commonplace staple a whole lot earlier, and something that Legends Arceus lacked for some reason. But the actual pathfinding is pretty non-existent. The pathfinding comes down to move in the direction of the target most of the time. Pokemon seem to have no sense for how to navigate obstacles. In the main game, this isn't too much of an issue. In the Mega Dimension DLC, as you're ordering your Pokemon to break a bonus ball, floating Pokeball, or even attack a target somewhere, you'll find your Pokemon frequently getting stuck. If you order them to throw out a move, they'll get to a close enough distance that this move can, in theory, make contact. There's 0 checks for whether there's an obstacle in the way of the move, and then they'll throw out the move anyway, often getting stuck on something like a corner. Clear the way for me, please. Please. Where the hell are you? No! Fuck! Would I do that like this way? He's a Florida gator, so he's probably more into bath salts. Where the hell are you going? So much stuff. Where are you going? What is the pathfinding of this game and why is it so broken? Big Pokeball. Really? Shit. Please. Are you kidding me? Their pathfinding sucks. I have to walk around here. Even though you can literally just fly over the thing. Bring Ethel V2. That's what we can do. Where the hell? Where? How did you? Alright, Floridator got stuck in the building for a moment there because it's just what happens. It's just what happens. Much like a Bethesda game, it just works. Okay. Destroy floating Pokeballs and stuff. Where are you? Where are you going? What the hell? Don't know if there'd be any more floating Pokeballs to get outside of this one, obviously. Darn you. This game actually just sucks. Like, really?
No.
Really? Can you pathfind your way to it?
Oh.
After a moment, yeah. Here. What is wrong with you? Genuinely, what is wrong with you? Which there totally is. That is perfect then. What the fuck is this pathfinding? Okay, new research. Oh, revive. Usually I just get Gimmigool coins. I told you to Aqua Jet. Where are you going? What? Where? Oh, genuinely. Like, I realize that this game got delayed and they took more time for it, but they still pushed it out in such an unfinished state. Like, I don't understand how anyone can look at this and be like, yes, this is what Pokemon should be. We finally hit peak. This game's amazing. Like, I don't get it. Pokeball throwing is really, really bad in this game. At Legends Arceus, they put a lot into the throwing, considering they made it such a core gameplay mechanic that's what you use to fight boss battles, in addition to throwing out your own Pokemon and throwing things out for wild Pokemon. And in regards to catching wild Pokemon, you even had the Pokeball types with different weights you could experiment with. It wasn't a perfect system. Pokeball collision with nearby objects in the environment was pretty jank because so much of the environment had a hitbox significantly larger than the object itself, so don't even think about throwing a Pokeball past a tight corner because it will bounce off the invisible wall that protrudes from the corner. But the worst part was that there existed a range where Pokeballs just didn't work. Despite the existence of the Feather Ball that was all about long-range throws, if you do a long-range throw past a certain distance, even if it will make direct contact, your Pokeball will instead pass right through the target. Well, in Pokémon Legends Z-A, it's even worse. In this game, throwing feels like it was designed as an afterthought, and it's only used for throwing Pokeballs to catch wild Pokemon. We're back to a modern set Pokemon game with modern Pokeballs. We don't have any Pokeballs that travel differently through the air. And that range from the last game where Pokeballs don't work? Yeah, it's significantly closer now. At Legends Arceus, it felt like you had to be within about 10 meters for the Pokeball to work. At Legends Z-A, it feels like you have to be within about 4 meters for the Pokeball to work. If you want to make sure the Pokemon is going into the Pokeball, you better be right next to them. If you're trying to be sneaky, not let the wild Pokemon spot you, and toss a Pokeball from afar before they notice you, yeah, there's a good chance it just won't work. It'll just pass through them like they're some sort of ghost. You gotta be basically riding their ass if you want to ensure that this basic game mechanic is going to work. There's no incentive or reward for more skillful play of landing a throw from farther. No such thing as sniping a Pokemon in this game. The ball will pass straight through. Can you snipe Pokemon in this game? There was like a max distance in Legends Arceus, where the Pokeballs just didn't work. Wow, okay, well, it's the same with this game. Lame. Game sucks, man. Didn't I already establish that I can't snipe Pokemon? Because I tried doing it at one point before, and then it didn't work. Yeah, look, it just bounces off, damn it! No! What the heck? No, get... Okay. Cool, yes, good. Good. And now for Mega Dimension. Oh boy, Mega Dimension. This might be the grindiest experience I have ever had in my 8 years of completing well over 260 playthroughs on this channel. I've done some serious grinds in games before, but historically that would usually be for 100%ing a game. But this grind was just for beating the game in the first place. In this DLC, you make donuts with Ansha using berries. Each hyperspace hole features Pokemon ranging from level 100 to level 200. The amount of levels there above 100 is determined by the star ranking of the hole from 1 to 5. The donut you make is affected by the ingredients you put in. The better ingredients give you a greater temporary level boost, adding however many levels onto your Pokemon's existing levels so that you can go well above 100 too, as well as the total time you can spend in the hyperspace hole, since they're all essentially small time dungeons, and each donut will get some random perks based on the flavors it leans towards, I think, like catching power steel, or fire move power boost, stuff like that, which, as far as I can tell, it just randomly chooses from a subset of potential things it can pull from. Hyperspace holes are randomly generated for each day and night cycle, so if you don't see any that you like, you sit on a bench to change the time of day. You go up to a hole and decide what donut you're spending to enter it, with the most important attributes being the level boost and total time it gives you in that hyperspace pocket. You head in and you'll typically have 3 objectives. These usually range from giving you around 1,000 to 2,500 points each, depending on the difficulty of the objective. So each hole you go into, depending on how diligent you are, you might get roughly 2,000 to 7,000 points total. Alternatively, in the Mega Dimension post-game, you can take on Rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon in these hyperspace holes, which give you 10,000 points each for defeating. This wasn't worth it to me at first, because they'd always be level 200, and if I didn't have a donut with enough of a time and level boost, I couldn't defeat it in time, and often risk my trainer falling too, so I'd waste a lot of time just reattempting the same optional boss after reloading my save. Once I got a strong inventory of high-level donuts that brought me close to level 200, these pockets were definitely my most efficient way to grind points. The trouble with these is you also don't get as much in the way of good donut ingredients as you do at the regular holes. The regular holes are filled with these floating Pokeballs you destroy and get donut ingredients. If you fulfill all the objectives in hyperspace, the game spawns a bonus ball that'll give a bunch of good donut ingredients. But in a regular hole, you get that, and whatever floating Pokeballs you broke along the way. But in one of these rogue Mega Evolved holes, you only get the one bonus ball, assuming you clear it. So when I was trying to farm up donut ingredients, I could actually do the higher level holes more consistently, but it didn't make sense for me to do these battles, even if they gave me more hyperspace points, because I didn't get as much donut ingredients. So I only did these consistently after I had like a good inventory of donut ingredients way later on. There were also hyperspace battle zones, which work kind of like the real world battle zones where there's trainers around that you battle. You can try to sneak up on them, or they can get the jump on you. But in here, the 3 objectives are just defeat X number of trainers. Try to defeat enough to get all 3 checked off. There isn't even the bonus tickets to award extra points along the way, which meant that there wasn't as much different objectives for my brain to latch onto as the overworld battle zones. It's literally just run around defeating trainers over and over. So I quickly stopped doing these because they bored me half to death. The number of points you need to do the next story boss battle is 7,000, then 10,000, then 15,000, then 23,000, 28,000, then 50,000 for Darkrai, then 70,000 for Groudon and Kyogre, then finally 100,000 for Rayquaza. That's a total of 303,000 hyperspace survey points the game requires you to obtain to beat the DLC. Not 100% it, beat it. Let's say each run takes a total of 8 minutes. I think that's pretty generous enough, because that includes the 3 to 6 minutes you might be inside the hyperspace hole, and you have to consider that you need to actually run to the hole itself in the overworld, you need to make the donut that you'll use to enter it, and there's other slowing factors like failed attempts at the Rogue Mega Evolved boss and the fact that once you reach the points you need to unlock the next boss, any other points you get earn you no extra credit for the next go. Plus, sometimes you might roll a bunch of hyperspace holes that you don't even want to go into and you have to reset the day and night cycle to reroll. So yeah, 8 minutes I'd say is pretty generous for each run. Let's say each run nets you 6,000 points. So 8 minutes for every 6,000 points. I'd say that's more than generous towards the game. Divide 303,000 by 6,000, and you're looking at the need to complete objectives in a hyperspace hole at least roughly 51 times just to beat the game, or roughly 7 hours of just repetitive hyperspace grinding alone. Again, I think that estimate is more than generous. If we look at my actual playthrough, because this was such a slog, I began playing 2 Pokémon games at once. I played Pokémon XD at the same time that I grinded in Legends Z-A. I would lock in my moves in Pokémon XD, and then with how insanely long the move animations are in that game, I'd drop my GameCube controller, pick up my Switch Pro controller, grind in ZA until my moves in XD are done, and then when they are, I'd pause ZA, switch controllers back to GameCube, lock in a new set of moves, and then switch back, and so on and so forth. I genuinely would not have had the energy required to have Legends Z-A be my sole focus for as long of a grind as it expected. You've gotta have something else on the side, like another game, or maybe a YouTube video open. Hey, maybe that's what you're doing right now. Point is, I recognize that my grinding isn't as efficient as it possibly could have been, and you have to recognize that I was also grinding a bit of those 15 promotion matches I needed for Eternal Floette on the side of my Mega Dimension grinding. After obtaining Groudon and Kyogre and having the task of 100,000 points presented to me, it took me 9 parts of my Pokemon XD playthrough of grinding ZA on the side before I had that number hit. These parts average about 25 minutes in length, so let's say 20 minutes of grinding each because I'm playing XD2 and not active on ZA. And you know what, let's be more generous to the game and say 18 minutes because some of these parts I might also get my next ZA Royale promotion match at the ready by putting a few minutes into one-shotting trainers in the battle zones. So 18 minutes multiplied by 9 times equals 162 minutes, or approximately 2.5 hours. I don't think it's unfair to say that when the game tasks you with getting 50,000 points to get Darkrai, it's asking you to drop everything and grind for the next hour and a half. That when the game tasks you with getting 70,000 points to get Groudon and Kyogre, it's asking you to drop everything and grind for the next 2 hours. And when the game tasks you with getting 100,000 points to get Rayquaza, it's asking you to drop everything and grind for the next 2.5 hours. If you thought the momentum of the main game was jarring and all over the place, look at the DLC. It doesn't let itself get any momentum, because anytime this train moves a little bit forward, it comes to a screeching halt moments after, and asks you to jump off and tediously assemble more and more track in front of it. Take my time estimates with a grain of salt. They're rough estimates. But do recognize that no matter what, this DLC presents you with hours of mandatory grinding to beat it, and that the grind makes up the vast majority of the DLC content. It's like in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country DLC campaign, where at multiple points the story comes to a screeching halt and asks you to do X percentage of total side quests around the world before it'll let you continue the story. But at least in that game, the side quests you did were finite, pre-made experiences. Each side quest is at least something different. Mega Dimension is this game's sorta roguelike mode. There's no handcrafted specific experience you need to surpass to unlock the next story mission. Instead, you just have to go do these hyperspace holes over and over, across the same 5 or 6 total layouts that you'll get so sick and tired of seeing over and over again, with marginal differences like, oh, the Pokemon are different each time. The floating Pokeballs and bonus balls spawn in different spots. Yeah, not enough variance to warrant the next 7 hours of mandatory grinding. This is one of the longest Pokemon playthroughs I've ever done on this channel. My playtime currently sits at over 70 hours. That was to beat the game and DLC, beat the post-game and see the true endings of each, and do the missions for each of the mythical Pokemon. 3 optional side quests just to get the Gen 6 starters, whatever side quests I needed to do to get up onto certain rooftops, hunt down a couple alpha Pokemon for my team viewers had redeemed, did a smidge of the online grind to get the exclusive Mega Stones, and that's about it. I didn't get the Hyperspace Legendary Pokemon, because in Mega Dimension, post-game, you can get 25,000 points to generate a special hole, and there's a chance it could be one of a handful of legendaries, and I didn't feel like grinding and gambling for an absurd amount of time to get them all. I didn't do any other side missions as far as I recall. I did not grind the online mode past the exclusive Mega Stones, and even then, I think there's a couple online exclusive Mega Stones I missed because I just didn't have the motivation for it. I did not attempt to do any research tasks. I only got the rewards for the ones I just happened to have fulfilled through regular play. I did not try to complete the Pokédex at all. I did not go out of my way for any fancy schmancy outfit. T-shirt and shorts my Florida man was good enough for the entire playthrough. There's a lot I could have done, I just didn't. And my playtime is over 70 hours. It's not because there was just that much meaningful content in the game. It's because the majority of that playtime is mandatory grinding. It's how the game is designed. Either they genuinely expected people to love the gameplay loop so much that they'd want to keep playing more and more and more, or they designed this game to have zero replay value due to the inherent grinding nature of the game, and therefore inherently designed this game to be consumable. Go experience it once, and then move on to the next product. And I'm leaning towards the latter. It makes sense for an IP like Pokemon to design their games with such a consumability in mind. Play this game once, and then move on to our next product within the next year or two, please. And honestly, the more I thought about it, the more it makes sense to me how it's still such a big part to so many kids growing up. Because how many other franchises can you actually grow up with anymore? Look at Final Fantasy, for example. Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997, 8 was 1999, 9 was 2000, 10 was 2001, 11 was 2002. Look at the more recent titles today. Final Fantasy 15 was 2016 on the PS4, and 16 was 2023 on the PS5. A difference of 7 years and across 2 console generations. If some kid played Final Fantasy 15 at the end of elementary school when it first came out, they could be in college by the time 16 came out. Let's look at another moneymaker of Nintendo's, The Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time was 1998, alongside Link's Awakening DX. Majora's Mask was 1999. 2001 was Oracle of Ages and Seasons. 2002 was Wind Waker and Four Swords. 2004 was Minish Cap and Four Swords Adventures. 2006 was Twilight Princess. 2007 was Phantom Hourglass, etc. Look at today. 2017 was Breath of the Wild. 2023 was its sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. That's 6 years apart, for a sequel that was largely an asset flip of an existing game. The last sequel and asset flip we got before this point was Majora's Mask, and that was put out in the span of a year. Though there is actually an interesting kind of story behind that. Sure, the general quality is going up, games are getting more technically impressive, graphics are getting more advanced, production life cycles are taking longer. But because of that, there isn't really an actual game series kids can grow up with anymore, except for Pokémon. Pokémon feels like it's the last AAA bastion of this old style of pumping out game after game on smaller production budgets. In that sense, it's no wonder it's so successful with this model, and will want to design their games to be inherently consumable, disposable experiences. If kids are going to grow up with a game, it'll either be a live service designed singular game that's supported over an incredibly long time like Fortnite or Minecraft, or if it's going to be a game series, it has to be something with regular releases, with Pokémon being the only remaining big player that comes to mind. If I had to sum up the gameplay of this game, it's grindy, repetitive, consumable, disposable. Before moving on though, one more thing to note. April 2nd, 2026 is when Pokémon Home Support released for this game. They take a long time before they add home support for new games that come out. This time, it took almost half a year. Yeah, most players are probably done playing this game at this point. Maybe they do it on purpose to try to bring players back? Also, while you can move Pokemon from ZA into Home and back into ZA, if you ever move one of your home Pokemon from a previous game like Scarlet and Violet into ZA, yeah, you're never allowed to move that Pokemon back to Scarlet and Violet or any earlier game again. You can transfer them back into Home, but unfortunately, they get the French sickness that makes it so that this Pokemon can never truly leave Lumio City. Presumably, you'll be able to transfer these Pokemon into future games like Winds and Waves, but that's still really, really crummy. It's not like ZA was a whole new generation or anything. It took almost half a year before adding home support, and once they did, any Pokemon you transfer into France, much like the Hotel California, you can never leave. Chapter 4, Visuals and Aesthetics. Hey, we've got the first Switch 2 Pokemon game. That means it should look better than ever, right? Oh, so wrong. How is it that as of the beginning of the Switch era of Pokemon, each game has progressively looked worse and worse? How is Let's Go the best looking Pokemon game on the Switch? Or maybe it's Sword and Shield. Sure, things like the wild area were big open emptiness, but the cities in that game actually had some wow factor to them. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were probably the ugliest modern games I've ever played, and then Legend Z-A said, hold my beer. The biggest reason being just how completely flat it is. Almost every building in this game is completely flat. The windows, railings, planters, small balconies, yeah, they're all just 2D textures plastered on. And there isn't even variance in the textures, like an occasional window with the lights on behind, or one with the drapes drawn. No, every single one is the exact same repeating texture all the way across, making it extremely uncanny as almost every building in the game has the same repeating flat textures endlessly across their surfaces. I look around the environment of this game and I feel like I'm trapped in the fucking back rooms. This especially baffles me because in the earlier builds of the game that got leaked, these building faces actually were 3D. They were changed to 2D textures sometime later in development, which tells me they ran into some sort of optimization issues. Really, on a game with an environment as simple as this, when we've had some mind-blowing worlds running perfectly fine on the Switch from other developers, and even on the Switch 2 version? It doesn't help matters that every part of the city looks exactly the same. I was worried before release after I'd heard that the entire game takes place in one city, figuring, alright, well surely the city will at least have different biomes or something like that. Maybe one quadrant is regular city, one is like forested city, one is water city, and one is desert city. Especially if Quasargico really want people and Pokemon to live together. Nope, the entire city is just a regular city and looks exactly the same. If I showed you screenshots or gameplay from different sections of the city, would you realistically be able to pinpoint where they are on the map? It makes the entire city so incredibly dull when there's nowhere that stands out. Nowhere that's different from other areas. Nowhere with really unique aesthetics. It's all just the same basic streets and perfectly flat buildings everywhere, like you're stuck in some kind of limbo. The wild zones are largely the same too. Just random streets you can find wild Pokemon in, designated by these green hologram walls. I felt in Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet like the Pokemon felt too robotic. They weren't naturally existing in their environment. They just spawn around you like plagues of locusts and wander generically. The only time in a modern mainline Pokemon game I felt like they were naturally existing in their environment was the Scarlet and Violet DLC mission with Perrin, where you had to go around photographing wild Pokemon, where the Pokemon were actually harder to find, and you'd find them up to activities that make sense for the species. There was a scarcity to them. You had to actually try to find Pokemon, and when you do, they were up to something you'd expect. That's something we still haven't seen in regular Pokemon gameplay yet. The last several games have been jarring in that it felt like the Pokemon weren't naturally existing in their environment, feeling instead like robots littering the ground everywhere for the player to have at it with. And in Legends Z-A, it's even worse, because not only are the Pokemon just everywhere and walking their basic loops over and over once again, but now they're doing it on these random city streets that it makes no sense for them to be living in. Oh, this wild zone, which is just another random section of road, is where you can find bug types like Pinsir and Vivillon? Why is this the bug type habitat? What makes it a good environment for bug types? Who knows, man? It's just a random road like 90% of the other wild zones in this game. I don't think I've ever seen such a disconnect between environment and what you find there in a game in my life. There's no world building here. Sometimes there's a little theming, like you can find ghost types in the Graveyard Wild Zone, or there's this one wild zone in the city that's actually an icy biome, which, as far as I remember, is the only wild zone in the game with an actual biome outside of city. But almost all of them look and feel exactly the same. It's more road, it's more of the same flat buildings. When I hop into a game world, I want to be truly brought into something interesting. Something that lets me feel like this is an amazing natural world. Biomes with creatures in them that makes it feel like it makes sense in the context of the game. Really give me a foreign world to immerse myself in. I want the world to feel naturally lived in, and like the world will continue to exist without me. Not only does Pokémon Legends Z-A not have that, but it asks the player to suspend disbelief to such a degree that I am just not capable of. The wildlife is happily living with their same basic wandering patterns every Pokemon seems to do on these random roads all around the city. Obviously, it's a fictional world, but there's no freaking way, man. I can't turn my brain off to such a degree where I can have that make sense. Mega Dimensions environments held some promise before release. This entire game takes place in this one really ugly city, but with DLC, we finally have the chance to leave the city. The DLC puts you in these little dimensional pockets that are just more of the city, but white. Somehow finding a way to make Lumio City even more boring than it already was by whitewashing it. And when it feels like there's probably only like 5 or 6 different possible layouts, you start seeing the same hyperspace layouts over and over again. Also, for whatever reason, the sewer hyperspace hole is like the one that has color to it outside of white. All the other ones are white and the sewers are fully colored for some reason. I have no idea why. What's really wild is in Pokemon X and Y, you could enter a lot of these Lumio City buildings. But now, 12 years later, in a game set exclusively in the city, there is a jarringly few number of buildings you can enter. Even cafes that were previously enterable in X and Y over a decade ago are now off limits. You interact with an NPC in front of the shops to buy things. And at other stores, you interact with a door and have a menu pulled up with the different things you can buy. There's no entering these shops. On top of that, I think the thing that shocked me the most, in post-game, there's this side quest you can do to catch Volcanion in the Pokemon Lab basement. And what does that look like? Just like the floor in the furthest Area Zero depths in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, it's perfect black! It's just complete darkness everywhere, and one blue line. Need I remind you, this is the highest grossing media IP in history, and this is the level of quality they're confident in putting out. You want to see something funny? So in Pokemon Legends Z-A, and considering the budget of modern Pokemon games, what do you think the basement of the Pokemon Lab looks like?
There's a basement?
There's a basement. You want to know what it looks like?
Sure. Whoa!
This is the basement! Scaffolding is all over the city, but there's no construction or repairs going on anywhere. Apparently, Terragon just puts this scaffolding up as puzzles for people to traverse around and find these colorful screw items. But it just feels really weird and jarring when that's the only purpose of scaffolding in this city completely littered with it. There's still no voice acting because that's not in the budget. And it's really jarring, especially in the higher quality cutscenes, when mouths are moving and there's sound effects in the environment and like clothes moving and stuff, but there's no voices coming out of the moving lips. This also goes from an extreme annoyance to making it genuinely not possible to understand the story at points. Look at the intro cutscene where you have all these silhouettes facing the tower, worried about the danger it poses to the city. Yeah, their backs are turned and there's no nameplates, so which one of these silhouettes is the one speaking the sentence? It's gone past just extreme annoyance. We can't even understand the story anymore with the way this cutscene is designed. Just put in voice acting. I'll do a character for free. Get me in there. In Pokémon Legends Arceus, I felt like the Pokémon didn't really look good. And this game, you know what? The Pokémon actually look good. So credit where it's due. As well, like always, I feel like the designs for the human characters are very well done. All the key characters have distinctly different designs that helps them stand out at a glance. It definitely doesn't risk all the characters looking samey. The colors pop well, and the costumes are unique and charming. That's the one thing graphically I've always liked with the Switch era of Pokemon, is feeling like the humans genuinely are well designed and charming. Well, maybe except for BDSP. I feel like if you showed me a silhouette of characters from this game, I could confidently tell you who they are. That's good design. Also, Emma's hot now. However, the humans around the world, it still feels like we're putting them around with the design philosophy of the original games from the 90s. Litter them around everywhere, with most standing completely still, and the odd one wandering on a basic loop. You look down city streets that aren't wild zones, and they're just filled with these unmoving statue people that have been frozen in place by the Dr. Stone petrification beam. Most of the cutscenes of this game are really quite bad. The fully animated ones, yeah, those are good. Most of the cutscenes of this game use animation presets, where characters have different poses and facial expressions that can be called on in the moment, which is a really common thing in video games. But the ones in this game have to be some of the worst I've seen. The characters feel like robots performing set actions, rather than actual people talking to one another. How many freaking mythical— oh my god, is that ever scary? Her face looks like something you'd see in a horror game.
Yes, it does like that.
Oh man, I don't want to think about how she'd feel if her dear Halucha went rogue. Overall, the aesthetics of this game reflect the feelings I expressed when discussing gameplay. It feels like a consumable, disposable product pumped out with development efficiency in mind over bringing a new experience into the world that'll stand the test of time. I'm trapped in an environment that looks virtually the same no matter where I go. The environment itself lacks depth, what with the flat wallpapers plastered across them all and inability to enter many of them. Pokemon wandering on basic loops like mindless zombies on city streets all over the place, and people who feel pretty much the same too. If I had to describe this game world in one word, it would be uncanny. Chapter 5, Soundtrack. Another thing that I've generally continued to like across the modern Switch Pokemon games is the soundtracks. Legends Z-A, however, to me is an unholy matrimony of some of the best Pokemon music you've ever heard and some of the worst Pokemon music you've ever heard. In the interest of time, we won't discuss every single theme in this game or anything, but I will bring up the ones I feel like are noteworthy. Let's just start at the beginning. The Lumio City music. You know, it's really quite good. The trouble is, you spend the entire game in the city, so after 70 hours, yeah, I am a bit sick and tired of hearing it. It'd be nice if there were several different themes that could be playing, and each day it chooses one randomly or something. Heck, even in Legends Arceus, each of the main wild areas had 2 distinctly different themes that could play. But the game that's only set in one location for its entire duration doesn't get that privilege. There's a day version, night version, and that's it. It's a beautiful orchestral remix of the Lumio City theme, but I gotta listen to something different sometimes. The music for the wild zones. It's nice, but the music doesn't really feel like it matches what it is I'm actually seeing. Remember, these are random roads in the middle of a flat city, not an actual open wild expanse this music makes it sound like. I'd argue this is more a fault of the world design rather than the music though, but there's still a mismatch here. The ZA Royale Battle Zone theme is fine enough, but it can get a bit tiresome after you've grinded these things out over and over and over again. The ZA Royale Trainer Battle theme. It's another Gen 6 remix, and yeah, it's pretty alrighty, but you have to hear this over and over and over. I wish there was a set of music it could pull from to give us a bit more variation. The ZA Royale Promotion Battle music. That one you're not going to hear so much that it gets annoying since promotion matches are much more sparse. I really like the intro of it, but I don't know, the rest sounds like a basic remix that added a beat and electronic sounds that you'd find like every average remixer on YouTube doing. It's really not my cup of tea. The Rogue Mega Evolution Battle theme has got to be the worst theme in this game, and one of the worst themes in the series, in my opinion. There are ways to have a frantic, unpredictable sounding battle theme against a truly fierce, raging opponent. And this is not it. There are points I just have to mute the game or remove my headphones because it was genuinely giving me a headache. Especially this part here. Am I supposed to be listening to music? Or am I supposed to be listening to some specific frequency that's going to rewire my brain into having a Winter Soldier kill command? The AZ and Floette theme is a remix of the theme from Pokémon X and Y. The focus of this theme is on the piano, with other string instruments coming in later, and it's handled really quite well, I'd say. The Team MZ battle theme, I'd say, is pretty alright. It's decently good, but doesn't super stand out to me. Maybe it's because of how much other music is actually amazing in this game. I don't know. Each of the main non-generic NPC foes you face in the Z-A Royale have their own battle theme, starting out with Canary. While I'm personally not the biggest fan of electronic sounds kind of music, I'm always a bigger fan of real instruments, I get why they take this approach when she's the streamer character, and I do admit that the melody itself is a bop. Ivor's theme is pretty alrighty, but I feel like it didn't stand out to me as much as the others. Honestly, re-listening to it for the sake of this video, it feels like I'm listening to it for the first time, so I really didn't remember it as well. But I do admit, this isn't bad. Our mob boss poison type user Corbo has this super intense electronic-y battle theme. Again, it's not my kind of music, but I get why they went for this approach here. And the melody itself is extremely fitting for the battle we find ourselves in. Yacinth gives us some sudden electro swing. Again, my cup of tea is orchestral, not electronic sounds, but you gotta admit the melody is a bop. Makes you want to start tapping a foot. Parts like this, though, I'm not really a big fan of. Is this music, or is this a sound my console makes after Nintendo bricks it? Grisham has a Team Flare battle theme remix. It's not bad, but in a lot of these themes, I do personally wish had more individual substance instead of the artificial substance that comes with adding a strong beat. Though some parts of it are pretty solid. The final battle against the tower has music that's a warped remix of the Lumio City theme, which is fitting, and it uses other leitmotifs as well. overall, it's a pretty solid theme. My personal favorite theme from this game, and now one of my new favorite Pokemon battle themes, is the battle against Lysander. It feels like a culmination of the journey, and hope for the future. It also helps matters that my favorite instrument is a violin, which is an instrument done justice to in this theme. Zygarde's battle theme. Again, like other themes, when it gets into a remix that's solely a remix by the electronic sounds and heavy beat put into it, that's, in my opinion, the artificial lazy way of adding simulated substance into music without actually adding substance. The ending credits theme. I'll just fully let this one speak for itself for a bit. No modders removing Sheeran this time. Ansha and Hoopa's theme takes on a lighthearted and innocent tone that also uses the leitmotif of Champion Diantha's theme, which is extremely fitting. The Hyperspace Lumiose theme. It's fine and sets the tone appropriately for this mysterious hyperspace pocket you found yourself in. But remember, you're going to be grinding these things over and over for probably 7-ish hours to beat the DLC. Another boon that came from playing Pokémon XD while I grinded this game is I could listen to something else, because I was definitely getting pretty tired of listening to the Z-A OST. The Karina battle music. It's handled a bit differently than the other battle themes. It gives me the vibes of something you'd hear in Pokemon Battle Revolution. The Darkrai battle music. I guess it's kind of fitting for what it is, but most of it is just kind of noise to me, though it does have some good parts. The DLC credits theme sounds like something you'd find in Mario Kart 8 or something. It's pretty solid. The Primal Kyogre and Groudon themes factor in a bit of the original Game Boy Advance-like sounds, which is neat. Outside of that, yeah, they're a remix of an established theme, but don't really do much new. The true final battle against Rayquaza starts out so amazingly, and then it quickly devolves into one of the worst Pokemon battle themes I've ever heard in my life. Overall, this soundtrack has some really fantastic themes, my absolute favorite being L's battle theme. And I do like the variety that came with the non-generic NPC battle themes across different styles and tones, though there was a consistency with them relying on electronic-y sounds. For new music, this game puts a decently wide array on display for different character battle themes. However, I feel like it did not have enough instrument variety, with so many themes rely on electronic sounds and a strong beat to make it feel like it had more substance than it actually does. There are several themes that, while good, will be playing all the time in the game to the point that it made me wish that there were different themes that could come on. And the remixes felt to me like they did the bare minimum to draw on the nostalgia of the original themes, rather than adding anything new of substance. For an example of how to handle game remixes well by adding new, greater substance, in my opinion, we can look at Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, the Dynasty Warriors spin-off of Fire Emblem 3 Houses. In the original 3 Houses, Wrathstrike is a theme that would play when a big monster showed up. I genuinely did not like this theme. Like, it expressed what it needed to, but it wasn't really something I just sit down and enjoy listening to. Meanwhile, 3 Hopes took this theme and did this with it. This is how you add substance and breathe new life into a theme you're remixing from a previous game, cementing 3 Hopes as my all-time favorite soundtrack built off of remixing music from an existing game. Legends Z-A remixes don't really add significant new substance. They'll just blast your ears with electronic sounds and a strong beat to try and deceive you into thinking they added more substance than they actually did. Chapter 6, Conclusion. With these new styles of videos I've started doing, I've been giving games a rating from 1 to 5, which are based on the degree to which I'd recommend the game to you. 5 means I feel like it's so standout that I'd recommend it to anyone who plays games. This is a standout game in the industry as a whole, and is an absolutely phenomenal game you should play. 4 means it's really quite good. It's stand out within its series or genre. If you're interested in the series or genre, I'd really recommend it. 3 means it's mid. It's average. It's not bad, but it's not standout either. It's just another average game on the shelf, which, unfortunately, I don't think most game reviewers realize by consequence that needs to be most games. So, it's not inherently a terrible thing to call a game mid. I'd recommend the game only if you're really interested in the series or genre and really want to consume more of it, but keep in mind you can get a better experience elsewhere. 2 means it's bad. It's worse than even a mid game. Go pick up an average game off the shelf and it'll be better than this. I'd recommend it to you only if you're a diehard fan of the series or genre and you really just want to experience as much of it as you can. If you're a diehard fan, you'll probably still find some enjoyment from it. 1 means it's so bad that I would never recommend this game to anyone, no matter how hardcore of a fan of the series or genre they are. Pokémon Legends Z-A, I would give a 1.5. I'd recommend it only to the most diehard of Pokemon fans, and even then I'd be a bit hesitant with the quality this came out at. What the game has going for it that keeps it from a 1 is that it has some pretty good music sometimes. I'm exploring around with my walking Pokemon in full 3D without them teleporting to me constantly. Generally pretty good customization, no gender-locked options, events in the story that were so batshit insane that it could be entertaining at times, a decent smidge of humor that did genuinely make me laugh, a battle system that, hey, at least it's different, and yeah, I think that's all I can think of. What it has going against it, though, we somehow stepped back from Legends Arceus in almost every way. The entire world is just one city that's one of the ugliest cities I've ever seen in a game, with flat textured buildings everywhere that look the same across the entire world. We have areas sectioned off for wild Pokemon to live naturally, as just random roads and apartments. And for being set completely in one city, there's an embarrassingly few buildings you can actually enter in this game. The models for humans are good, but everyone feels like a lifeless robot. The music is genuinely awful sometimes. The battle system comes mostly down to just spamming your best moves off of cooldown. There's no deeper positioning or utility strategy to your Pokemon like other real-time or action games. Just keep punching in moves. One of the most basic game mechanics of Pokeball throwing just doesn't work if you're not like right beside the Pokemon you're throwing at. The story is just a series of completely random bullshit that does not advance a narrative forward until you reach rank A and the game's like, hey, it's time to start the final act. The game left one of the most important plot points untouched, being Quasartico's incompetence. You can see how these wild zones are making people's lives harder and how people are protesting it. And we just never do anything about that. And promote and help the current terrible system. We're the bad guys here! And worst of all, this game is inherently designed around a repetitive grinding gameplay loop that artificially bloats your playtime by forcing you to grind for half of it to make the game seem like it has more content than it actually has. This is maybe a 10 to 15 hour game, which itself is mostly comprised of what feels like mandatory side quests rather than anything that actually adds any substance to the plot, which artificially bloats itself into a 50-hour RPG by forcing you to grind the same ZA Royale points over and over. The same feeling Rogue Mega Evolution battles, over and over. The same hyperspace holes for survey points, over and over. The main content of this game is not very much, but it bloats itself up to make it seem like there's more here than there actually is. This game is the strongest example I've seen since Assassin's Creed Valhalla in quantity over quality. There's not a lot of really quality, meaningful main content for you to engage with here, but we'll bloat it up with bullshit and mandatory grinding to make it seem like there is. Pokémon Legends Z-A is, without a doubt, my least favorite new game of 2025, assuming Fire Emblem Shadows doesn't count. I continue to be baffled by the quality put out by this company. But hey, on a brighter note, Pokémon Winds and Waves wasn't pumped out right for 2026. It's releasing 2027. And looking at the trailer, while the graphics could still use some improvement in areas, at least it looks not god-awful like the last several games have been. This August, we also have the release of Beast of Reincarnation, which is a new Game Freak game coming out for non-Nintendo consoles, and actually looks interesting and not like some rushed-out mess, which tells me that when they have the time and resources, Game Freak can probably actually cook, that they're just being way too rushed with Pokemon. Time will tell. It'll be interesting to see how both Beast of Reincarnation and Pokemon Winds and Waves pan out. I am at least intrigued with both, and plan on doing playthroughs on this channel of both games when they release. But with Pokémon Legends Z-A, thus concludes the Switch 1 era of Game Freak Pokemon. And what an absolutely wild ride it was. A ride that feels like it crashed and exploded at the station at the end here, like it was the bumbly beach coaster from Roller Coaster Tycoon. Hopefully this ends this truly bastardized era. We'll see how the coming years pan out. Thanks for watching the video. Well, we tried setting up a ladder, boss. We even tried the Holovators and what? All your trying doesn't seem to have resulted in anything to show. Well, rogue Pokemon busted them up, boss. They smashed everything. Guess we gotta do something about this ourselves, then. Rust Syndicate, time to show our mettle. You got it, boss. There's that weird glitchy line again, except it was over that guy's brow there. Once you choose your path, there's no turning back. The only way is forward. Everyone wants to fist bump me all the time. And I never do. We always do this air thing. He's actually coming into contact. It wasn't in the animation budget. Oh my god. You know how Mega Evolution's an expression of the bonds between people and Pokemon and people? Here's an expression of the bonds between the members of the Rust Syndicate. A human ladder. Realistically, the moment I'd start climbing that and adding weight to the back, we're going back like that. Boss, Mr. Corbill, we've already fallen off the straight and narrow. At this rate, we're gonna fall short here too. Looks like we're one person short. Do we call someone? Only one thing to do. My grunts are giving their all, and as their leader, I need to give just as much, and then some. Yeah, this is how we get people sent to the hospital, man. Don't you worry about me. My word's my bond, and I'm not breaking either tonight. I mean, realistically, let's say I was the last rung, and at that point, I could pull myself up. But whatever, man. This is our highest calling. Literally. No need to hesitate. Climb on up. I mean it. Don't dilly-dally. Better climb up quick, because I don't know how long we'll last. So can I actually physically climb up, or is it going to be a fade through black? It better not be a fade through black. Oh my god, amazing. It's just doing the same generic ladder animation. I'm not grabbing onto anybody, but it would have been kind of cool. Go get him. Still amazing, man. Don't know why you look like you're struggling so much. You've got the easiest job. Go get him, Florence. 10 out of 10 game. Yeah, I've changed my mind. Oh my god, he's dead! Okay. I don't know where he is. What happens if I fall off now? Oh, you guys better do it again now. What are you doing down here? You fell off! You better get back up here! Okay. I am really glad that there wasn't an invisible wall there. Ouch. They're not so inspiring anymore. Go get him. Oh, counting on you, Chief. I just want to check in with how you guys are doing down there. I want to get a look here. Oh, whoop. Sorry. I might have slipped. What happened this time? Seriously, you fell off again? Okay, oh my god, there is still more dialogue. I wasn't sure if there would be. Okay, I'm back up here now. Again, seriously? Ow, ow. Get him. Stop making me do all this physical labor, okay? I gotta know when the dialogue ends. I have to know at this point. I can't not. Are you doing this on purpose? Having a bit of fun at the Rust Syndicate's expense, are we? My god. This is your last chance, kid. Step on it and get yourself up here already. Tread lightly, pal. Remember this, kid. Ow, ow, ow. Feels kind of nice. Go get him already. The fate of Lumios is on your shoulders now. And you're seriously testing my shoulders as well as my patience. Fall off again, and we're having that Pokemon showdown at Hotel Z. Don't you dare fall off again, kid. I am kind of very glad that they programmed in the ability for this to go on multiple times. That they didn't just, you know, don't you dare fall off again. Okay, now that there's the invisible wall. That is kind of funny, though.